Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and in this video I'm going to talk about Bruce Colville's The Unicorn Chronicles. So this is actually the first video in what I would consider my modern kind of book reviews of looking at modern, almost read aloud books, as opposed to some of my more classics when I covered Anne of Avonlea and The Wizard of Oz and other books that are much further in the past. These books were written during my lifetime. So the first book, Into the Land of Unicorns, came out in, I believe, 1994. So, and I read this book. So this is not my original copy. My original copy was a paperback. It is mostly destroyed because I memorized this book. This was the longest book I had read up to that point. This was the introduction of mine to fantasy. So this is definitely epic fantasy. I was the age-appropriate age when I read this first book, so I was about 11 or 12. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I was about, or maybe 10. But this is the longest book I'd read at that point. I believe it's 159 pages. And I double check that. Yeah, 159. I think it was 200 when I read the paperback, but I could have been wrong. It was the longest book I had read up to that point. It was the first book I could never put down. And I had it memorized. I loved this book. For years to come, I read it over and over and over again until it fell apart. Again, I bought a new copy. This is a hardback. But I love this book. So the next book in the series, and this is my original copy because I don't have the dust jacket for it, another hardback. This is The Song of the Wanderer. You can kind of see the way faded away book cover here. It did have a very fancy, very pretty dust jacket, which I think tore. Again, I read this book to death. Now, this book was published, and you kind of start seeing the timing here, in 1999. So 1994 to 1999. I went from being probably very age appropriate to this book to getting a little out of it, because I was roughly 1999. I was almost 15 when I got this book. In fact, I probably was 15 because I think I got it for Christmas. So I was 15 years old. I was getting a little old for it. I still love the story. That's the reason it's in horrible condition, is because, again, I read it to death. So these two first books I love to death. Now, I could probably explain a little bit to what the story of this book is. So Into the Land of Unicorns tells the story of Kara Hunter. So in the beginning of the story, she's walking home from the library with her grandmother, with whom she lives. She thinks somebody's following them, and her grandmother reacts kind of strangely, and they go hiding in a church. And somebody's following them, and her grandmother is terrified, and she doesn't know what she's going on. She's about 12 years old when this book starts, I think through most of it. So her grandmother hands her an amulet that had always been off limits, and she said, you trust me. And it's like, she's like, yeah, I trust you. Grandmother tells her, this is her grandmother, Ivy Morris, tells her to climb to the top of the bell tower, and her grandmother's going to ring it, I believe it's 12 times, and then tells her granddaughter, say, Lester, bring me home, and jump. And Kara does. And she lands in a land of Lester. She's attacked by a creature called Deliver. She's kind of rescued by a man bear. I believe they pronounce it the Dumplum. I could be wrong. That's how I pronounced it. I haven't listened to any of the audiobooks. And then he introduced her to a unicorn by the name of Lightfoot, who plays a major role in the story. I think so does the man bear. So their goal is they need to travel to and take this amulet, which opens a portal into the world Luster of the unicorn, the world of unicorns, to get her to the queen of the unicorns in, I think, their summer grounds. So that is a lot of the story. They're attacked by these Delivers, which are kind of evil little dwarf creatures. There's a whole lot more story back to them, but you don't know it in this book. They run into a man by the name of Thomas Tinker, who is human, and eventually deal with the dragon. Find out Kara's father is the one who was chasing them back on Earth, and she finds out the whole backstories of how the unicorns came to this world, because they were being hunted by these hunters, where you had this woman by the name of Beloved who, due to an accident and a battle, between her father and a unicorn, has a tip of a horn stuck in her heart, and it's keeping her alive. Yeah, so for a very, very, very long time. So she basically is the matriarch, and they're off to kill the unicorns. That is their goal, because she thinks that's the only way she's going to be able to die. And Kara's father is one of them. So he is the one who's basically, her grandmother used, I believe you find this out in the second book, used magic to basically, she summoned a unicorn to heal Kara when she was about 3, when she was very ill. And then she had to take Kara away because the hunters summoned her father, Ian, who they hadn't paid attention to at the time, and she had to basically protect her granddaughter. So she didn't want them using her to attract unicorns. So that's kind of the story here. Kara betrays her father. She doesn't listen to him. She helps this dragon get free, and the dragon takes her father back to Earth. And she is able to get to the queen and deliver a message. The wanderer is weary, to the queen. And the queen basically says, so it's time to basically bring her grandmother home. That's what the message meant. So that is this book. It is a very, very beautiful book. I loved it, read it. I have not read it in years, so basically what you heard was a summary of something that I have not touched in a very, very long time. So I had this book memorized, and apparently still do. So that is Interlandic Universe. The second book, The Song of the Wanderer, tells a little bit more of Ivy's story, but it's Kara is traveling across Luster to a place where she can basically triangulate, where she can use the amulet to get to her grandmother. And you find out various stories about the world they have to deal with. Another dragon. There's a lot of dragons in these books. And deliverers, and there are battles, and it's a very interesting story. It's longer than the other one. So this is 330 pages long. Again, it's a fantastic story. It ends with a very interesting revelation. Ivy Morris, Kara's grandmother, is a unicorn. So, and is the heir to the throne, as opposed to her friend, Kara's friend Lightfoot, who's been avoiding it. Turns out, no, he's avoiding it, doesn't feel right, because he's not supposed to be the heir to the throne. He's kind of third in line. And they were desperate because Flickerfoot, which is Amelia Flickerfoot, which is Ivy Morris's unicorn name, is actually the heir to the throne. So there's a battle with more hunters. Kara's father switches sides because he loves his daughter and realizes that no, this isn't it, and the unicorns make sense. So that's the other big thing. Unfortunately, the hunters also get a hold of an amulet that had belonged to a man by the name of Jocks, who had at one point in time been married to Ivy Morris. So that's kind of the climax to this, and Kara's grandmother essentially turns into a unicorn. So fantastic book. Absolutely loved it. Read it when I was 15. And yes, that's important, because then after this, things get very, very strange. So in preparing for this review, I looked into the next couple of books. So when these books originally came out, and these are what I'm talking about is the next 3 books in the series. Unfortunately, they're no longer in print, and I will explain why in a moment. So the next book that I read in the series was Dark Whispers. So again, this book isn't in print, and here's the timing. So this came out when I was about 15, back in 1999. Dark Whispers came out in 2008. So by 2008, I was finishing up my undergraduate degree. So I was in my mid-20s. In fact, I was about 20. In 2008, I was about 23, 24. So I did not enjoy this book. I thoroughly admit. It gets very, very complicated. You have a split story here. So you go to, now I don't know these books very well, so sorry about the umming. So stay with me here. Kara is on a mission in this book to find a lost chronicle of the Unicorn Chronicles that's going to give a little bit more explanations to help them in the final battle against the hunters, because it is coming, because they have an amulet and they want to open a giant portal and kill all the unicorns, because that's what they do. Her father is on a mission to find Kara's mother, Martha, who in the previous book, Kara had looked into a red jewel and found her mother asleep somewhere. And it turns out that she's trapped asleep in a rainbow prison, which is where Ivy was, only Ivy's was green. Martha's is red. So it's kind of a place between worlds. Essentially, her soul is trapped there for whatever reason, basically because Beloved decided this is where I'm going to store you because I need your husband right now to do my bidding. So Ian's story here is he's searching. I believe he goes to India to find how to access this red rainbow prison to basically rescue his wife. So that's kind of the two stories that's coming out here. I do not, like I said, do not know this book very well, and it is out of print. So what Colville has decided to do recently is to split this book into two, and he's done that. The first book is I believe it's The Whisper. I need to do a quick double check to Amazon here and let me do Colville. Quick book. There we go. Bruce Colville. So he has split this book into two here. If I can actually get to his site here. Here it is. So instead of Dark Whispers, the now third book in the series is shorter, is called Enter the Whisperer. So I'm guessing this one is just going to follow the Kara's story, but I am not sure. I'm going to have a click on it here and do a quick look and see if, well, let's see, it's not. All right, so she's stolen one of the amulets, which we knew from the previous book, and let's see. So no, they're just making it shorter. So it looks like Kara's father begins the Queen sends Kara and Lightfoot on a mission to recover this lost chronicle, and on Earth, Kara's father, desperate quest of his own, begins to find basically the mother. So he's looking for Martha. So that is kind of the beginning of the story. I do not know how he's gonna structure that. The next one that he has split, which is not out yet, which is The Secret of the Deliverers. So that's book 4. That's actually, as of this video, it's going to be coming out literally, I think, in the next week or so. So yeah, it's literally going to come out 2 weeks from tomorrow. So this video is being filmed on April 15th of 2021. This Secret of Deliverers is coming out on April 30th of this month. So this book, it looks like, so the one I'm holding in my hand is out of print. You can probably find it in used bookstores, and it's a combination of these two books. So let's see. Looks like Kara is a prisoner in an underground world. So she's been, yes, I remember, she was kidnapped by the Deliverers. So, and she's going to deal with centaurs. Lightfoot is trying to figure out whether or not he should rescue her, and then Ian's finding his wife and trying to figure out how to find her and try to free her. So that is what they're doing with this book. They seem to have split it into two. I don't know if he's going to split it into 3. I don't think so. It wouldn't make sense. So big thing is these books became far too long. So the first book was 159 pages. The second book was like 200 something. This is 461. So these things started getting very, very long. Now, again, the last book is also out of print. I'm guessing he's going to split that into 3, because The Last Hunt, which again is out of print, but this is the last book that he wrote. This is the one that I got, obviously, because I own this book. This came out in 2010. I didn't buy it until 2011. I was overseas when this came out. So, again, I did not like this book. So I'm guessing because of the length of this book, and I think I read it on the Wikipedia page, his intent with this one, yeah, because this is like 604, 605 pages long, is to split it into 3. So it makes, rather than having a 4-book series, he's going to have a 7. So This is the last hunt. I am not entirely sure. Obviously, this is the final battle. The big twist in this, and this is a big warning, and this will happen no matter what, Kara turns into a unicorn. That irritated me. I did not like that. Mind you, by the time I read this book, remember, I was like 11, 12 when I read the first book. I was 27, so I was very old. And as much as I enjoyed the stories, again, I did not like Dark Whispers. I bought this because I love the series, and I love the first book, so it's like, I'm going to have all of them. And I contemplated getting rid of these 2 books before, but I've held on to them. But this is the final story. Kara's turned into a unicorn. You find out a lot more of the history of this world. I'll admit, Colville's a very good writer. I mean, these are very much of a passion project of his. He's very good at writing the epic fantasy, though he does not do it often. That is not his forte. He does a lot of shorter, more lighter books, I believe, was what he's known for. I'll do a quick look here on Amazon for a little bit more of what Colville is known for. Let's see, where we go. There we go. Let's look at Colville's Amazon page. So, yeah, he does more lighter magic fantasy. The Unicorn Chronicles are very, what I would call very high fantasy. So they can get very, very dark and very involved. He also has various books called My Teacher Flunked the Planet, My Teacher Glows in the Dark, which I will probably eventually look at my sister. My Teacher is an Alien, which I believe I've read. So he's a very, very good author. So I enjoy Colville as much as I don't particularly like the way he took the Unicorn Chronicles. Again, the first 2 books I memorized. So obviously he's a very, very good author. I will probably look at more of his books, particularly as my kids get older. He's also has a connection to another author that I absolutely, utterly adore, which is Tamora Pierce, and I will cover, there will be several videos of me covering her books, because these are definitely something I'm going to try to have my daughter read, because they're good, what I call feminist, they're strong female character books. And he is actually friends with her, and you can kind of see some of the interaction when you're dealing with her medieval fantasy books, which I read in my 20s. But again, the Unicorn Chronicles, the last 2 books here, Dark Whispers and The Last Hunt, are no longer in print. You can probably find them at used bookstores. He is splitting the books up. And so we will see how he does that. That was, I think, a recent decision, probably because the books were too long and they didn't quite fit his typical style. So I'm guessing they're trying to get more people into this book series, because I know he loves it. This is a huge passion project for Colville. And again, he's a fantastic writer. Look at his, I'll link his author page at the end of this review. There's probably some interesting stuff in there that your kids will enjoy. Boys, girls, he's a good author. He does write very good fantasy, and it looks like a little bit of science fiction. So again, would I recommend this book series? I don't know. It's very big epic fantasy. Like I said, I didn't like the last 2 books, or what's going to end up like the last half of the series. But that's my opinion. I read these when I was probably far too old for the book series, and I had become slightly disillusioned at that point, and I really don't like that twist. Yeah, I don't like Kara turning into a unicorn. That irritates me a lot. That's pretty much why I don't like the last part of these books. But again, that's my personal opinion. It should not affect whether or not you enjoy these books or recommend for your children. They do get dark. Characters do die. So this is definitely a teen or tween age book series. You might be able to read it to your younger kids if they're into epic fantasy, but you know your parents, you know your kids, you know how to judge them. You can read, I think, episodically, just a little bit. I don't know if there's any cliffhangers. Each book, at least from my experience, has a conclusion. There's always there's no real cliffhangers to an extent. You do get a lead on into the next book, but it does kind of wrap it up, so it's easier to read that way. So this is Into the Unicorn Chronicles by Bruce Colville. Great author. My opinion, I have my own issues with these books, but again, I have a long history of these books. love the first two, don't like the second two, or what apparently is going to be the last 5. So you're, again, I will link these things in the description below. You can kind of make your own decisions with whether you want to recommend this. The first 2 books may lean more female because it's unicorns, but again, there is many male characters. Lightfoot is the main unicorn in there. He's Kara's friend. He is a very strong male. He comes off very much, at least in the beginning books, as the angsty teenager, because he is, by unicorn standards, hundreds of years old, but he's very, very young. So in considering how long your unicorns live. But so that's the Unicorn Chronicles. If your kids are interested in epic fantasy, great pick. Check out more of Colville's books. Some of them are going to be funny. Some of them are going to be interesting. He's a good author. I will eventually cover Tamora Pierce, probably in multiple reviews, because I have quite a few of her books, and I adore her. So that is it for this review. If you like this review and want to see more, like and subscribe, and thank you.